everyone, and welcome to the May 2025 edition of Archaeology News, where we go on a journey through time exploring the latest exciting archaeological discoveries from around the world. Archaeologists are making groundbreaking discoveries all the time, but since your newsfeed might have decided not to show them to you, I have used my years of experience as an archaeologist to carefully research this video to provide you with well-sourced and interesting, accurate news about real archaeology. No pseudoscience, clickbait, or artificial intelligence here. Featured stories for this month include the discovery of human presence in the remote Isle of Skye 11,500 years ago, an interview with Dr. Michele Bleuze on the human sacrificial remains found in the Cave of Blood at the Mayan site of Dos Pilas, an ornate gold crown that used jewel beetle wings for decoration found in South Korea, the verdict of the trial of the two men accused of felling the Sycamore gap tree, and a chat with author Kate Myers about her book, Excavations, which is being developed into a comedy TV show by Amy Poehler and Mike Schur, creators of Parks and Recreation. If this sounds like it's right up your trench, stay tuned to dig deep into these captivating stories. Don't forget to take a few seconds to subscribe or like to help support the channel and tell the algorithm to promote it to new viewers. Every bit of engagement helps. If you're feeling extra generous, you can make a Ko-fi donation, give a super thanks, or check out my Redbubble store for some archaeology-themed merch, all designed by myself. All right, everyone, let's dig into the news. We have 9 stories today in our Top Discoveries segment, which I will be covering in chronological order, starting with those going the farthest back in time and working my way up closer to modern day, starting with a story that comes from my proverbial backyard, the Isle of Skye, where archaeologists have discovered ancient tools, which they believe show evidence of one of the earliest human populations yet known in Scotland. The stone tool heads are believed to be around 11,000 to 11,500 years old and date from a period known as the Late Upper Paleolithic, a time when much of Western Scotland was buried underneath ice. They come from a site called South Kidrach on the west coast of the Trotternish Peninsula. Their presence here has led researchers to conclude that groups of nomadic hunter-gatherers from northern Europe following animal herds would have crossed Doggerland and established themselves on Skye. When grouped together with a group of intertidal stone circular alignments also recently discovered on the island, this new evidence for the occupation of northern Scotland also represents the most northerly late Upper Paleolithic site in Britain. For these ancient groups, whose experience was likely rooted in the low-lying plains of their northern European homelands and Doggerland, moving into central Scotland and crossing the mountainous terrain while potentially navigating fluctuating ice sheets and large bodies of water, both on the mainland and Skye, would have presented an entirely new geographical context and challenge. While settling their new home, they based themselves close to coastal and river resources, as well as natural materials like ochre, which was highly valued by ancient cultures. This discovery of evidence for a late Upper Paleolithic presence in Scotland offers a new perspective on this culture. Regardless of the route the late Upper Paleolithic people took to reach Scotland, the wide geographical distribution of finds suggests they spread across much of the country. To date, all sites of this age in Scotland have been discovered by chance, and thus there is insufficient evidence to address further questions regarding their adaptations and lifestyles. However, by reconstructing the geographical limitations of ice sheet evolution, changes in the relative sea levels and river courses, it may be possible to focus on likely locations onshore and off of other late Upper Paleolithic sites as a result of this new research. Our second discovery this month takes us all the way to the Flint Valley in the Gobi Altai area of Mongolia. The valley owes its name to the presence of numerous flint outcrops and artifacts. It is one of the most extensive prehistoric sites in Central Asia. Despite the numerous remains of Stone Age settlements, only limited archaeological research has been carried out there so far. The aim of this new research was to remedy that, through analyzing the nature of long-term prehistoric settlement around the valley. Excavations were preceded by an intensive survey, which revealed the existence of a network of paleo-lakes, aka extinct lakes, and numerous sites associated with communities inhabiting this area in the Holocene and Pleistocene eras. Of the paleo lakes surveyed, the one known as Barun Khuri was at the center of this new study. 3 sites found there contained various material, including pottery, lithic artifacts, fragments of ostrich eggshells, and ostrich eggshell beads and pendants. 11 radiocarbon dates were obtained from charcoal and charred plant remains samples taken from 6 hearths within the 3 sites. The results indicated that there had been 2 chronological groups of occupation. One dated to around 10,600 to 10,500 years ago, and the other to 11,200 to 11,100 years ago. These sites are now one of the earliest securely dated episodes of the Holocene hunter-gatherers' activities in the Gobi Desert. Additionally, the dates provide new insights into the precise timing of the arrival of pottery into Mongolia. The pottery found here is different from known ceramics in Mongolia, generally having a gray or dark gray or reddish appearance and a thickness not exceeding 7 to 8 millimeters. Previous research indicated that the earliest pottery to reach Mongolia would happened around 9,600 years ago. However, the Barunhuri pottery, which was found in the immediate context of the hearths that were radiocarbon dated, is almost 2,000 years older, meaning it possibly represents the earliest introduction of pottery into Mongolia. The research team are currently carrying out several specialist analyses of both categories of artifacts, and another publication focusing on the pottery and ostrich eggshell adornments is being written. Our next story takes us near Grozny in Chechnya, Russia. There, archaeologists have unearthed an undisturbed Alanian burial mound dating back over 2,000 years, revealing a wealth of exquisite artifacts. Found during an excavation in advance of development, it is one of the few Alanian burial sites which have not been previously looted. The intact burial suggests the interred individual was a figure of significant status, possibly a military leader, and offers an unprecedented window into the culture and society of the Alans, a nomadic group originating from ancient Iranian peoples. They were renowned horse lords who migrated across the Eurasian steppe into Europe and later North Africa. The excavation found a treasure trove of items that illuminate the sophisticated craftsmanship and material culture of the Alans, including their tradition of elaborately decorating their horses. Among the finds are horse harnesses with tourmaline and gold decorations, a bridle inlaid with garnets, rare 3-bladed weapons, and imported metal vessels. The opulence and quality of these grave goods is unparalleled and underscores the advanced metalworking skills of Alanian artisans, as well as strongly indicating the high social standing or military prowess of the tomb's occupant. All of the items are undergoing restoration and conservation work and will then be displayed in the National Museum of the Chechen Republic. Now we go to Italy and the library of the Villa of the Papyri at Herculaneum. If you've been watching archaeology news for a while, you will know this is quite a regular stop for us. It is a luxury Roman villa thought to have been owned by Julius Caesar's father-in-law. It was buried under ash and pumice when Herculaneum was destroyed, along with Pompeii during the eruption of Vesuvius in 79 CE. The library contains the remains of hundreds of charred scrolls, and advancements in artificial intelligence and 3D X-rays have finally allowed a variety of researchers to start piecing together the text on the scrolls to read them. There's even a competition with cash prizes for progress in reading the scrolls from the 3D X-rays and developing software around it. In May, researchers discovered the title and author of one of the scrolls after X-raying the carbonized papyrus and virtually unwrapping it on a computer, the first time such crucial details have been gleaned from this approach. The scroll is part of a multi-volume work on vices, written by the Epicurean philosopher Philodemus in the 1st century BCE. The scroll is one of 3 from Herculaneum housed at the Bodleian Libraries in Oxford. Named P. Herc 172, it was scanned last July, and unusually, some ink was visible in the X-ray images, with researchers spotting the ancient Greek word for disgust at least twice in the document. Further work found the title and author of the text on the innermost section of the scroll, earning them the Vesuvius Challenge's first $60,000 prize. A book number on the scroll may be an alpha, suggesting that it could be the first installment of the work. On Vices contains at least 10 books, with others covering topics such as arrogance, greed, flattery, and household management. Before long, we should be getting even more discoveries from the scrolls, as 18 were scanned in March and 20 more in May. As the only intact classical library to survive, so to speak, into modern day, the potential for what we can learn from these scrolls is huge, since the majority of classical texts are lost and only known through references by other works that survived. The work to read these scrolls will probably end up being one of, if not the, most important archaeological discovery of the 21st century. Next up, we head to Guatemala and the site of Dos Pilas, where new research on human remains found in the Cueva de Sangre, or Cave of Blood, hints at unusual Maya religious rituals unique to this site. Dr. Michele Bleuze, a bioarchaeologist at California State University, is here to tell us all about her work on this exciting project. Let's dig into the interview.
Welcome to the channel, Michele. It is a pleasure to have you here talking about this very exciting discovery from Guatemala.
Thank you for having me, Rachel.
I'm going to jump right into our first question today, which is, can you give us a bit of a background about the site?
Yes, so this site was actually known since 1960. They were surveying the area for oil, but the significance of the site wasn't until 1987 when Stephen Houston, he completed his PhD dissertation in 1987 on the actual site of Dos Pilas. So Dos Pilas is the surface site, and he was later at Vanderbilt University. And in 1989, the Vanderbilt University had their Patesh Batoon Regional Archaeological Project. And a year later in 1990, from 1990 to 1993, there was a sub-project of that larger project. And that sub-project was looking at the caves associated with the site of Dos Pilas. So the cave survey was interested in understanding how the caves at the site relate to the surface architecture at Dos Pilas. 22 caves were found in and around Dos Pilas, and of those, 5 of those caves are where the human remains were recovered. One of those caves is Cueva de Sangre.
And so now you guys have come around and decided to revisit or re-examine these remains. Why is that?
I have not been working with the human remains all this time. My involvement started in 2022. The human remains were sent to the bioarchaeologist who was working with the cave survey in the 1990s. And when she retired, she sent the human osteological material to the lead archaeologist on the cave survey, and that's Dr. Jim Brady. Him and I are at the same institution at Cal State LA. And so the human remains were sent to Cal State LA in 2017, and I got involved in 2022. That's when Jim and I started actually looking at the human remains. He's an archaeologist. I'm a bioarchaeologist. As far as I know, there's been one master's thesis on the Dos Pilas caves, the human remains from the caves, but that's basically it since we started our Subterranean Maya bioarchaeology project here at Cal State LA.
Can you tell us more then, now that you've started this project, what you and your team have discovered?
Right now, we're still focusing just on the one cave, Cueva de Sangre. And so right now, what we're looking at basically is completing the inventory. We want to know how many individuals do we have, the biological profile, any sort of unusual pathology, any markers of identity. That's what we're looking at right now. We've kind of just started this project, but what we've so far found is that there are really good examples of protracted mortuary treatment, which the Maya are known for. So for example, in this specific cave, we do have at least 2 individuals, an older female and a juvenile. Their bones appear to have been painted in red ochre. We've confirmed that it is red ochre with a fair amount of copal as part of the material in the pigment. We've also noted that another part of the cave, we have the cultural curation of body parts, particularly skull caps, and lower limbs, particularly the tibia, from both adults and juveniles. And that's in a different part of the cave. So what we're actually finding is that, because the cave is a whole, it's a system of passages. So rather than examining the cave as a single depositional unit, what we've found is that We seem to be getting a different pattern when we look at the cave as chunks, unit chunks like that. For example, this cave has 4 entrances, and passages seem to end at a certain area. They can continue to another area in other parts of the cave, but it's difficult to get through there without modern lighting and things like that. What we're hypothesizing right now is that perhaps the Maya didn't see the cave as a single system, but as multiple systems that we're now looking at as an integrated system. Once we started looking at the human remains in that way, that's when we started seeing patterns. The biggest one is that at the end of each entrance, at the deepest, darkest, wettest part of the cave, that's where we tend to see significant treatment, ritual treatment of human remains. So, for example, the red ochre deposit, the part of the cave where we have this cultural curation of crania and lower limbs, those are at the end of entrances. So that's kind of the pattern that we're seeing right now.
What do you think that pattern means, or how are you interpreting it?
With Maya, ritual activities tend to occur. There are 2 patterns, right? They occur in public spaces where you can have gatherings, right? Like kind of a theatrical display. And then you also have more intimate settings where rituals are happening in restricted areas. And these restricted areas can be natural, right? So cave passages can naturally narrow in certain places, or the Maya were modifying these areas. So for example, building walls and things like that to make the area restricted. With regard to the red ochre and the cultural curation of body parts, but both of those deposits occur in wet, dark areas of the cave, and they're also happening in restricted areas. What seems to be happening in this cave is that we do have human remains in more public open areas, but then we also have kind of these ritual deposits in these more restricted areas.
And so is it pretty obvious to you that they are ritual deposits and they're not, for example, like a burial ground, like they're burying the dead in the cave? What's the difference between the two?
There are subterranean features where we do have burials. So we do know what burial looks like in a cave. For example, Noctuniche, which is also in Guatemala. With regard to sangre, we know that these are not burials. For one thing, the location, it's a cave that is wet, where the human remains are found wet, muddy. So it's not really an ideal place for burial. The other issue is that the human remains are scattered on the cave floor. They are not interred in any sort of grave or anything like that. There are no grave goods. We're coming across body parts predominantly in this cave, and the demographic profile is not one of a natural death. As of right now, we do not seem to have a high number of infants, which you generally have in a natural death. We have a deciduous tooth. Estimated age is about 1 year old in one part of the cave. And then we have a long bone from an infant in another part of the cave.
So you're saying you're finding body parts here. Do you think that this means that they're amputating like pieces like themselves as a part of a ritual, or do you think, or is it just that the bones are quite scattered?
We haven't found any evidence of amputation. There is a lot of bone scatter. Some parts of the cave we're only finding the terminal parts of limbs, for example, hands and feet, body parts that can easily be removed. I don't want to say amputated because that's, when the person's alive. So in this case, we're not sure if they're removing body parts and then depositing them in the cave, or if a body was deposited in the cave and then parts are removed, right? The mortuary landscape here is very dynamic. Other areas of the cave where we are finding vertebrae, ribs, right? So that does suggest whole bodies at one time were deposited in there. So these are things we're still trying to figure out.
In the article I read, it mentioned that this might be related to the rain god and the rainy season and making sacrifices. Do you want to speak a little bit more about that? Why they might have been doing this?
Right. So the Maya are an agricultural group. So clearly rain, waters is very important for them. And in Maya belief, rain does come from the caves, right? In Western thought, rain comes from the sky, right? But not in Maya. This particular part of the cave where we have accumulation of crania is found in the lowest part of the cave that floods. So you can only be in this part of the cave during the dry season. You can only access it during that time. So what we think is that these remains in this particular part of the cave may have been sacrifices for water for the upcoming agricultural season.
Roughly, when does this site date to? When was it being used?
So the site was used essentially from the pre-classic around 400 BC to the late classic around 900 AD. We have done some radiocarbon dates on human remains, and the dates are coming back early as well as late classics. Dos Pilas was a Maya capital. During the late classic, you had a group of elites from Tikal settle in Dos Pilas. What's interesting is that the use of the caves is much longer than the elites being at the site of Dos Pilas. So we know that non-elites were utilizing these caves prior to the elites arriving in Dos Pilas, and even after the elites left. Just to be very clear, the Dos Pilas is a site on top, right? But these caves are being used by elites as well as non-elites. Yeah.
Very interesting. What you've come across so far, have you said, has it been a surprise? Has it been one you expected?
The taphonomy has been incredibly challenging. Putting individuals back together as best we can has been very challenging. We know that the Maya were moving human remains within caves. So when we're working with the deposit, we always have to keep in mind, like, parts of this individual could be found in a completely different deposit on the other side of the cave, right? So that challenge keeps it fun. What was very surprising is how different this osteological assemblage is from others that we were working with. So for example, Midnight Terror Cave in Bleuze, which is also part of our project, we're getting whole bodies there. I mean, it's a completely different assemblage, right? You know, both are from cave context, both are from non-funerary ritual context, but the assemblages are incredibly different in terms of composition, things like that. So for me, that was surprising.
What's kind of planned next for the project? You've mentioned a couple different types of analysis.
Yeah, so we're continuing with the radiocarbon dates. Right now, the hypothesis is that different parts of the caves were being used at different times by different groups. So we want to get the chronology settled. The other thing that we're very interested in is knowing who these individuals were, right? There are surface burials at Dos Pilas. So why were these individuals deposited in the cave when we know that individuals could be deposited or buried on the surface, right, at this site? So one of the things that we're also pursuing is ancient DNA, stable isotopes, right? Not just for diet, but trying to reconstruct, do we have locals here or non-locals, a mixture of both. We want to look at the demographic profile more carefully, try to reconstruct sex ratio, age groups, best we can, right? These are fragmentary, commingled remains. So a lot of this stuff is going to be very difficult to do, which is why we're really going to rely on the ancient DNA here.
And is there anywhere that people watching can follow what you guys are doing when you do updates or when you have new research or results to publish?
Well, our website at Cal State LA, the information that comes out of our research, we're putting it there, and we're working on publications. We have one already it's been published now. So we have some very interesting pathology that we found in the caves, but have not been reported in Maya skeletal assemblages from surface collections. Something to keep in mind is that generally speaking, the human remains from the caves are much better preserved than on the surface, right? Generally speaking. So oftentimes we have things that you may not find in surface burials. One of them is the pathology. So we're also finishing up a manuscript right now on some pathology from the temporal bone, indicative of chronic otitis, the ear disease.
Well, that's everything I have to say. It was been really interesting speaking to you and learning more about this site, and good luck with the rest of your research.
Thank you, Rachel.
What an exciting find with much more to tell us. Our next discovery comes from Gyeongju in South Korea. Known historically as Sorebol, this site was the capital of the Kingdom of Silla, one of the three kingdoms of ancient Korea and the first to unify the Korean peninsula. Among Silla's most iconic symbols of power were its ceremonial crowns, elaborate tree-like structures fashioned from gold, adorned with jade and intricate designs that symbolized spiritual and political authority. Excavations at Tomb 102-2 in the site have now unearthed one of these crowns, amongst other artifacts and human remains, which is remarkable not only for its ornate design, but for its rare and innovative use of materials. Alongside vertical gold extensions shaped like tree branches and deer antlers, the crown features dozens of tiny, heart-shaped perforations. These were once delicately filled with 15 colorful jewel beetle wings, some of which remained intact after more than 1,000 years underground. Beetle wings have been found before in Silla tombs of the most elite aristocracy of the kingdom, decorating accessories like belts and horse tackle. However, this is the first recorded instance of beetle wings being used to decorate a Silla royal crown. The insect used is a Buprestidae, or jewel beetle, which is prized for its iridescent exoskeleton that refracts light to create vivid green, blue, and coppery hues. The crown was found in situ atop the tomb occupant's skull. The body beneath was also adorned with heavy gold earrings with wide hoops, a chest ornament of dark blue beads, an elegant silver belt and matching bracelets and rings, over 500 miniature yellow beads forming a bracelet, and gilt bronze shoes, likely made exclusively for the funerary ritual. Everything was discovered as it was worn, providing a snapshot of royal attire at the moment of burial, a rarity in Korean archaeology. Each artifact appears to have been purpose-made for the burial, emphasizing ritual significance over daily use. Preliminary skeletal analysis indicates that the tomb's occupant was a girl between 12 to 15 years old that was around 170 centimeters or 5 foot 7 inches tall. A young child around 3 years old was buried next to her. These results have yet to be confirmed via DNA, and it's hoped that further lab analysis will reveal more information about the sex, rank, and lineage of the two burials. This discovery not only enriches our understanding of Silla royalty, but also reaffirms Gyeongju's place as one of the world's most treasure-rich archaeological sites and landscapes. Now we head to Bac Ninh province in northern Vietnam, where two remarkably well-preserved ancient wooden boats have been found beneath a fish pond. In December 2024, when a local resident was restoring the pond, he encountered the edges of the buried boats. Recognizing their potential significance, authorities were immediately notified, leading to an emergency excavation in March 2025. They were initially thought to be simple dugout canoes. However, weeks of careful work revealed a more complex and unprecedented construction, two parallel hulls situated around 2 meters apart. Remarkably, a solid wooden beam connected the bows of both hulls, suggesting they functioned as a single, more powerful vessel. The boat's structure is very special, with solid connections, high-level mortise and tenon techniques, and all wooden rivets, made completely without metal. Each hull is divided into 6 compartments of varying depths. The soil within contained numerous fruit seeds and other artifacts. Analysis of these organic remains promises to reveal the cargo transported, the types of fruit carried, and even the geographical origins of the fruit trees. The location of the discovery is particularly significant, as it is a mere half-mile from the ancient citadel of Loi Le, a historically vital urban center in early Vietnam. This proximity suggests a strong connection between the boats and the flourishing trade along the Dao River. Historical accounts indicate the citadel was a major international commercial hub during the period of Chinese northern domination from the 1st to 3rd centuries CE, serving as a crucial transit point for trade. Initial dating based on construction techniques like wooden nails and plank connections points towards the Lai and Tran dynasties, corresponding to the 11th to 14th century CE. Radiocarbon samples have been sent for dating, and the team are awaiting the results. Regardless of the boat's age, this discovery is poised to become one of Vietnam's most significant archaeological discoveries. The distinctive design of the boats and their connection to a major historical hub promise to rewrite our understanding of ancient interconnectedness within the wider world. Our penultimate discovery this month comes from Costa Rica, where marine archaeologists have definitively identified 2 long-known shipwrecks as the remnants of Danish slave ships that vanished centuries ago. For years, the wrecks were locally believed to be pirate ships due to their dispersed and broken state. However, their true identities came into question in 2015 when marine archaeologists unearthed distinctive yellow bricks within one of the wrecks. These bricks were produced in Flensburg, Germany, during the 18th and 19th centuries, specifically for Denmark and its colonies, a style not common in other European nations at the time. Historical records documented the 1710 shipwreck of two Danish slave vessels off the Central American coast, the Fredericus Quartus, which was set ablaze, and the Christianus Quintus, which was swept away after its anchor rope was severed. In 2023, marine archaeologists conducted an underwater excavation of the Costa Rican sites, spearheaded by a group of young scuba divers of African and indigenous descent. They retrieved wood samples, brick fragments, and several clay pipes. Subsequent analysis showed that these matched the historical accounts. Tree ring dating of oak wood from one of the wrecks indicated its origin in the western Baltic Sea region, with the tree felled between 1690 and 1695. The presence of charred and sooty timbers also aligned perfectly with historical accounts of one ship burning. The yellow bricks matched the dimensions of those manufactured in Flensburg for Danish use, and the clay used in their production was traced to southern Denmark. Furthermore, the size, shape, and design of the recovered clay pipes identified them as Danish artifacts made just before the 1710 shipwrecks. Now, there is no doubt that these are the wrecks of the slave ships. Historical archives revealed that approximately 800 individuals were aboard the two ships that journeyed from Copenhagen to West Africa and then Cahutia. Due to smog, the vessels went off course, landing in Costa Rica on March 2, 1710. Fear of pirates and local inhabitants led to disagreements among the captains, culminating in a mutiny by both sailors and the enslaved Africans, after which around 650 people remained on the beach, of which more than 600 were African slaves, proving their presence in the province a century earlier than official records indicated. Around 100 of the enslaved Africans were later recaptured and sent to plantations, while others escaped. This landmark finding is Costa Rica's first underwater archaeological excavation and provides critical new insights into the region's colonial history and the transatlantic slave trade, with plans to integrate these findings into educational programs at the national park. To protect the artifacts and marine environment, the wreck sites will be limited to non-invasive tours. Lastly, we head to Myanmar, where the ruins of monumental royal architecture have emerged following the massive 7.7 magnitude earthquake that struck in late March. This earthquake, which killed thousands of people and damaged infrastructure and structures across the country, included heritage sites, but has also unearthed long-forgotten monuments and ancient ruins. These ruins emerged about 6.2 miles from Mandalay, and preliminary archaeological work suggests that the structure may have been used in water-related royal ceremonies held by ancient Myanmar kings from the Kongbong dynasty that ruled Burma from 1752 to 1885. However, it is believed not to be a royal water palace, as it lacks large-scale chambers typically associated with such buildings. Parts of a staircase were first discovered here by local residents in 2009, but now additional parts of the structure have been revealed, including foundational structures, stairways, and traces of pavilions that match illustrations recorded in ancient palm leaf manuscripts. The site was likely used in service of the royal city of Ratnapura Ava, aka the City of Gems, which was an imperial capital for successive Burmese kingdoms between the 14th and 19th centuries. It was looted and rebuilt many times until a series of major earthquakes in March 1839 left the city abandoned. The new structure is expected to be excavated and preserved, with plans to make the site accessible for public education. That's it for our top discoveries. Which one was your favorite? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this segment, don't forget to like the video. Now we're going to move on to current news and events. Our first news story this month comes from the site of Anundshög in Sweden, where archaeologists have discovered the site has been subjected to looting. Anundshög is one of Sweden's most prominent archaeological sites, containing its largest grave mound, which is over 60 meters in diameter and 9 meters high. At the foot of the mound are two large stone ships placed end to end. Within the area are a further 11 burial mounds and 10 round stone settings. These graves were probably raised over members of different generations of the same family. Most of them were plundered long ago, and the site has not been excavated in modern day. In May, news broke that over 50 illegal looting pits have been found across the site, most of which are concentrated in the stone ships. Clear traces of people who systemically and illegally searched for objects in the ground, probably through using metal detectors, a looting practice known as night hawking. We don't know what was stolen, and we probably never will. The looting has been reported, and hopefully archaeologists can quickly carry out investigations of both the pits and the area in order to assist in a possible police investigation. This is a serious offense in Sweden and pretty much anywhere else, as anyone who damages, excavates, or removes something from an ancient monument without permission can be sentenced to a fine or imprisonment for up to 4 years. In serious cases, the punishment can be even more severe. Let's hope the thieves left something behind and get caught. Speaking of heritage crime, last month I reported on the beginning of the trial of the 2 men accused of felling the Sycamore gap tree in 2023. The trial has now concluded. Daniel Graham and Adam Carruthers have each been found guilty of 2 counts of criminal damage. The jurors took 5 hours to reach a unanimous verdict. Both men have been remanded into custody, partly for their own protection, ahead of sentencing, which is due to take place on the 15th of July. The presiding judge said that they should be prepared for lengthy custodial sentences. Can I just say that it's really good to see some justice being doled out for such a senseless act? That's the end of current news and events. We'll close today talking about archaeology and entertainment and pop culture. First up is the news that we will be getting an archaeology comedy TV show. It has been announced that the book Excavations by Kate Myers, which was released in 2023, is being developed into a comedy series by Amy Poehler and Mike Schur, who famously teamed up for Parks and Recreation. The book's author, Kate, previously studied archaeology at university and went on a field school in Greece, and she generously agreed to have a chat with me about this exciting news. Let's dig into the interview. Welcome, Kate, to the channel. It's so exciting to have you here to chat about your exciting news of developing a new archaeology TV show based on your book, which I have right here, with Amy Poehler and Mike Schur, who made Parks and Rec. I was reading your author bio, and I saw that you obviously studied archaeology at university. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Thank you for having me. This is a total joy. I feel compelled to say at the jump how little I know about archaeology, which is maybe not what I should be leading with on this channel, but I'm a fiction writer. It's funny because usually when I go to book events, you know, I studied archaeology as an undergraduate 20 years ago, but I'm so jazzed because I obviously feel strongly about the community and the whole thing. So yeah, so I studied it at Penn. The Penn Museum is this extraordinary archaeology museum, you know, famous the world over, and I just fell in love with it. It's an amazing place. After college, not unlike one of the characters in the book, Patty, I had no idea what I wanted to do. It was 2008, like prime time for career disasters started blossoming. So I didn't have a job, had no concept of how to get a job. And so I heard through the archaeology department that they're constantly hiring undergraduates to go and work and be the lowly laborers on these digs. They need tons of people, as you know. So I was jazzed. You know, I was 22 and I was like, oh, you're going to like fly me to Greece and put me up. And all I have to do is like work outside for 100 hours a day. Yeah. I was like, great, let's go. So I went, and the site is the Mount Lycaean excavation and survey in Greece. That's where I was. It's an ongoing, I don't know if, I'm sure it's ongoing. It was a long-term excavation site near Olympia in Greece, and very similar to the one that I ultimately wrote about in the book. So a precursor to the Olympics in a lot of ways.
So I have the book. The site in the book is based around Megalopolis, which is a real place in Greece. Yeah. So you based it on a real site.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's awesome. Like the big city there. And then the site is probably like an hour like a vertical hour away up this crazy mountain. So very remote.
And then after your blissful summer, as I'm sure it was, digging in Greece, you then ventured into a career doing PV writing, which is also very exciting. But now you've come back to archaeology.
Yeah, I had interned during college for, I loved the archaeology in college for sure, but I also was really interested in the entertainment business, media, mainly reading, which comes full circle. So I worked in New York for CBS and for DreamWorks, doing a bit of book scouting, as we would say in the biz, like finding IP, intellectual property, magazine articles, books, things like that to turn into movies and television. So a dream job if you're a big reader. So it was pretty great. Did that for a couple of years. Also lived in LA for a few years. So yeah, I had it's kind of funny, like coming full circle. I always knew, we were chatting about this for a moment before our call began, that summer was such a rich tapestry for a series or for a book. So I always kind of knew I would come back to that.
Are there any real life people or situations that you encountered while you were in the field that have made its way into the book?
Certainly. I mean, what I do every now and then, meet archaeologists at book talks or people that have been on digs. And I so appreciate that people feel seen because the takeaway on these digs, I think people, it's a job and it's a profession that people romanticize, but really the day-to-day grind of it is like, you're literally digging. It's very dirty. You're outside. It's more akin to, manual labor and landscaping in a lot of ways than sort of a refined image that I think people have, like in a museum. It really starts out like truly in the field. Also, we were there in the summer, which is when a lot of these have, it's like 100 degrees. We're sweating. We're covered in bug spray and sunscreen, and there are no bathrooms up there, so we're like peeing behind a bush. And it's like, I was 22, I was obsessed the whole time with like finding a boyfriend that summer, and like making friends and staying up late and trying to like drink beer, but not too much beer so that I'd be hungover in the field, because as we said, it's terrible. And so like that, it was very summer camp. It felt really like this little group of really all Americans living in this remote village, super social, all the drama that you get from a bunch of people living in a small place. When I wrote the book, I didn't think of it this way, but then when I had all the TV and film meetings for it, everyone that I spoke with called it a workplace comedy, sort of like like The Office, of like just day in and day out, you're with these same idiots, these crazy coworkers with all their weirdness. It just so happens that you're outside and you're doing this thing that is very lofty.
That's an excellent segue now into talking a bit more about the exciting news of your TV deal. So is there anything that you can share about the upcoming TV show with Amy Poehler and Mike Schur? How does it feel to potentially be part of something like this?
The dream team, for sure. It is wild that like this dig I went on all these years ago is now, turning into this. That's so crazy. And the book itself has been on, like all books, a crazy publishing journey. So it's wild that this is the fruition. So yeah, it got optioned 2 years ago by NBC with Amy attached to executive produce it. And then the Hollywood strike happened. So it was on ice. And then the wildfires in LA. So it's sort of been like the Midas touch of like all this stuff going wrong. But yeah, it was announced like a couple weeks ago that it is going to happen. Full speed ahead. Mike Schur, he is the creator of Parks and Rec, The Good Place. He was a producer on The Office. He's going to showrun it and be in charge. And Amy is going to star in it, is going to play one of the main characters in the book. I don't know if I'm allowed to say who, but
Can I make a guess?
Yeah.
My thinking is she's probably going to be Elise.
That is age appropriate. Yeah.
Yes. Age appropriate, but may or may not. That's my guess, and we'll have to just see what it's going to be going forward.
Time will tell. And yeah, there's some fun like casting stuff that might happen, and who knows? So it's my first rodeo, with all this. So I'm learning as we go, but it's been really fun, and I think the dig will just be like a really fun setting for it. They're starting the writer's room at the end of July, and I think filming later this year and early next year, and it is supposed to come out in fall of 26. So we'll all get our archaeological TV comedy that we've all been
I will mark it on my calendar. Fantastic. All right. Well, that's all the questions I have for today. I look forward to hopefully keeping in touch and seeing more of what you guys produce. I honestly can't express how excited I am to see this show being developed. I have been saying for years that a dig is the perfect setting for a mockumentary reality TV style show like Parks and Rec or The Office. If you're interested in getting a head start on what the show might center around, there is a link to buy Kate's book in the description. I'm currently working my way through it, and I'm really enjoying it, especially finding all of the archaeology Easter eggs that are in the book. Next up is the news that Mexico is seeking compensation from a production company that worked with YouTube celebrity Mr. Beast to produce his I Explored 2,000-year-old ancient temples video, accusing the star of using images of the country's ancient archaeological sites to advertise his chocolate brand. A video of the social media star visiting the Maya ruins of Chichen Itza and Calakmul has been viewed around 80 million times since the writing of this particular video. In the video, Mr. Beast advertises his brand snacks Feastables, calling them Mayan approved, prompting an official complaint from the National Institute of Archaeology and History. While Mexico is pleased that YouTubers and the world's young people appreciate the value of their indigenous civilizations, it strongly condemns those who take advantage. The permit issued to the production company Full Circle Media did not authorize the use of the image of the archaeological sites for the advertising of commercial brands for private profit. Mexico is demanding compensation for damages and a public retraction due to non-compliance with the permit terms. In response, Mr. Beast claims that he filmed with full permits, followed guidelines, had representatives from government agencies following him while he filmed, Mexican archaeologists to make sure that he was accurate, and representatives from the sites to ensure that they were following the rules. He also says that he actually left the site and didn't film his advert on the site. Several people have also expressed disapproval of the extent of access to the sites that he was given, as they are restricted to everyone else. I will be doing a live reaction to Mr. Beast's video, as I did to his pyramids one, after the premiere tonight of this particular video. So make sure to stick around to tune in to that for my thoughts. Lastly, Dr. Zahi Hawass appeared on the Joe Rogan show this month to promote his new lecture tour taking place this summer. I would say that it did not go particularly well. I did do a live reaction to watching the entire hour-and-a-half interview. If you're interested, it is quite long. To summarize, I think that Zahi didn't really do enough to prepare for the interview and clearly didn't expect to be asked to provide visible images of what he was talking about. His response when prompted for images to back up what he was saying was generally repetitively, "It's in my book," which in this day and age, it just doesn't look good. I think it's really, honestly, I think that it's a generational difference as to why he didn't have them on him. That's not to say that what he was saying was wrong. He just didn't bring his receipts to back it up. He also got visibly annoyed when Joe wouldn't stop bringing up pseudoscience topics, which is something that I totally get. I mean, if you have a chance to talk to the person who's driven Egyptian archaeology for the past few decades and dug on the country and the world's most famous sites, like the last thing that I would talk to him about is Göbekli Tepe, which isn't even in Egypt, or whether or not the Great Pyramid is a vibrational sound spa. I feel like he has so much more interesting stuff to talk about than that. All right, everyone, that's everything for the May 2025 edition of Archaeology News. Did you like this video? Which story was your favorite? Is there anything important that I missed? Don't forget to comment, like the video, or subscribe to the channel before you leave. If you're feeling extra generous, you can give me a super thanks or go to my Ko-fi page and support me with a small donation. If you're looking for a more tangible return, then have a look at my Redbubble shop and get a sticker, t-shirt, or hat, or mug with your favorite slogan that I've designed. Taking a few seconds to support me in any way that you can helps grow the channel and promotes quality heritage content that is well-sourced, researched, and presented by somebody who actually is an expert in this subject. It shows the algorithm that people are interested in real archaeology, not just sensationalism. Thank you so much for watching. Stay curious, and I hope to see you on my next adventure inside archaeology.